I didn't lose track that the people were the absolute number one asset in that building. So if I ensured that every time that team come in, they were motivated, there was high energy, that's going to ripple out to them performing the best they can in their job role, them delivering that excellent service to the customers.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Culture by Design. I have with me today Paul Phelan, coming to us from the UK. Paul, welcome to the episode. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure, Tim, to join you, lead a factor, and just have a nice conversation about what we do and to connect on a different level, which is great.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell everyone a little bit about Paul. He's an award-winning leadership development professional with over 20 years in senior management with both the fashion and automotive retail industry. As a qualified professional across a wide range of industry-leading psychometric tools, and along with really what I think is an unconventional and thought-provoking style, and you're going to hear that as we get into this conversation today. But Paul is one of my favorite people in the learning and development space. I would say unconventional is definitely an accurate word, Paul. Is that okay? Is that fair?
Look, do you know what? I didn't think of that myself. It was interesting. I got that from feedback from someone that I asked to do, they wanted to do something on LinkedIn, put like a recommendation. And it really hit me. I was like, I like that word because, I don't want to just be doing the normal stuff. I like to challenge others. And I'm happy with that unconventional. I will do things that's like.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for you to be conventional. I just don't think that's going to happen. No. So, Paul, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so for me, home was in Bedfordshire in the UK. So it was just me, mum and dad, so no brothers or sisters. So that competitive spirit, weren't there. When I met my wife, she had like 2 brothers, 1 sister. So it was a real interesting dynamics. But I suppose, as I grew up, I had lots of friends. My mum and dad were really social. We were always going to see people. We had a big family, uncles, aunties, cousins, so there was always great. So I suppose, the social skills that I wouldn't have known then were building up slowly in me from kind of ground zero days really and upwards. And and then just went to school normal. We've got 3-tier school over here and worked my way up. And I think, early days I realised that maybe the full-on academic route wasn't always going to be my path. I wanted to get out there and just really start something. I mean, when I was 14, 15, I was out the door at 5 a.m. doing a paper round.
Really?
Yeah, I was gone.
Were you really?
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But it fired me up. I was an early bird in the morning, so I just wanted to get out. And I loved that. I already had a bit of responsibility that the manager of the newspaper shop got me in at 5, so I could set up all the paper rounds ready for all the rest of the girls and the guys to come in and grab their bags. And
you loved doing that?
I loved it, 100%. It was just like, there I was up early anyway. My dad was always up early because he was out the door early. So there was obviously something there within our genes. And there I was 5 a.m, out and about, riding my bike and going to the newspaper shop around the corner and getting all the other newspaper guys and girls set up for their day.
So, Paul, I'm going to guess that when you were in the classroom, you probably got restless and antsy in your chair. Am I getting this right? And that you couldn't stay there all day? What was it like for you in high school? I'm just guessing that you were kind of bouncing around and you had a hard time sitting in your chair.
Yeah. There was definitely a common theme in my school reports. If Paul could just compose that energy into his work, he could achieve some great things. There was a common theme. Yeah, definitely. As you look back now, you now learn. That extroversion was in me. And I suppose there were times in education, that I was not struggling, but you have to conform, don't you, to a certain way. The academics there, the curriculum's there, and my learning style was perhaps a little bit off center to that. And there were some times when I'd be like, God, geez, I just want to do something a little bit different. Sitting there just being talked to for a whole day was just not really firing me up.
So do you find that you learn by doing?
Hugely, yeah. Hugely, I enjoyed that, and it was really bizarre because I went through like my junior school, my middle school, and then eventually my senior school, and even my grades were okay. There were nothing to, I was never going to be the next scientist or the next person that designed something amazing. But equally, I was a midway. But then my last year, I did it as like a end of year. You have to do like exams and it be very factual. I did it in a way that which was really interesting for me, which I look back. I was already starting my career in a sports shop. So I was doing like a weekend part-time job. And then I did my sixth form, which was, I did it as an NVQ. Now, what was interesting is the NVQ was assignment-based. And I literally, kid you not, I achieved every assignment at distinction and eventually got the highest grade at the end, which was a distinction. And when I look back,
No kidding.
the reason why I look back and I remember why it worked so well for me is because I was so much better at talking about what I was doing rather than someone go, tell me the exact answer to this, this, and this. And it was definitely that activist in me, having to go and learn by mistakes and just feel it more than actually trying to tell it.
So that format, it kind of liberated you.
Oh, hugely.
And it allowed you to be you.
Yeah, I'd say out of all of my, 16, well, you're not in school for 16, but good 12 years of school, my last year was the one I was really buzzing. I was in it. I was fully immersed. I was going home. I was doing extra. I couldn't wait for the next assignment because it was like, right, how am I going to, because it was a business studies one, it just linked so nicely to everything I was doing, customer service, teams and everything. And I was like, this was great. I really enjoyed it.
So when you got out of high school, senior school, what did you call it?
Yeah, like senior school. Yeah, we have like a junior, middle, and senior. Yeah.
Senior, yeah. So when you got out of senior, did you know what you wanted to do?
Not exactly.
Okay.
I knew what I didn't want, and I didn't want to then do that route of college and university. I was like, right, I want to get out there and work. I want to start carving out a career for myself. I was highly into my sports. I was a young age into my football. Now I was now working in a sports shop, so this fitted really well. And I then continued to then progress that. So by the time I finished my studies and I got my distinction, the manager then offered me the chance to come and work full time with then the training to become like the next assistant manager. And I couldn't wait. Yeah, I just grabbed it. Yeah, we had those chats at home, mum and dad were thinking it was going to be one route, but I was thinking another.
Yeah. So what kind of business was that initially?
That was a sports shop.
Okay.
So a retail sports shop.
Retail sports shop. So you did that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey from there to get to where you are now as really one of the preeminent learning and development leaders in the industry. So how did that journey come about?
My early days in that sports shop, I loved it. And I got the training and development. I became a store manager quite early on in my career, which was fantastic. And I thought, wow, you're feeling on top of the mountain here, early 20s.
You're running your own shop.
Set of keys. Yeah, I've got my shop. This is amazing. Yeah. And when I look back, we used to have the sport reps come in. So we'd have Adidas and Nike, and they would come in and do training sessions. And I found myself just getting really hooked in. And once they'd gone, I'd almost replicate my own training sessions, when people were like, when they were gone. And I used to love it. So we'd get new starters and I'd be like, I'm going to teach you the product. I'm going to do it. And I'd replicate. And I really just felt so empowered giving back some knowledge to someone. So I suppose when I look back, it was there. It was telling me already, Tim. It was there, but I did not even recognize that. And then I went on.
So they'd come in and train, and then you would take that and you'd create your own training and deliver that just on your own.
I'd get the team in, for half an hour before we start. It'd be a Saturday and we'd do some product training. We'd get the energy fired up. So when we open those doors on a Saturday, our busy day, customers got the real bang. It was ready. We were ready to kind of, and actually gave them some knowledge about the trainers because we really wanted, anyone could go and buy a pair of trainers, but we want to really offer that unique service. So it was their early days. But then, my career path went through the management route and I thought, I wanted to go on eventually to be a store manager and maybe an area manager. And I was really pushing those boundaries. And I moved around different retailers for quite some years. And, I grew in terms of bigger ones. I suppose my last real big kind of management role was I moved from sports retail into then fashion retail. So I went to a big fashion retailer, Next PLC, and I was there for 15 years. But what was interesting is out of those 5 years was that normal route. I'd gone through the store level, got to store manager level. And what was interestingly, yet again, we had area trainers. So they would come round, and just see that you're doing all your training and your development and everything. And we started to see that our store was being recognised. We were getting excellent every time we were getting graded. And I remember the area trainer saying to me, look, we could use you, Paul, to maybe go around some other stores and help do some training.
Okay. I'm getting it now.
It started there, yeah.
But how was your store different? If we walked into your location, right, your ecosystem was different than the other locations. What was different? What did senior management notice that was different that said, Paul's doing something different And it's consistently a different experience that he's providing for customers. What was it?
We didn't look, I didn't lose track that the people were the absolute number one asset in that building. So if I ensured that every time that team come in, they were motivated, there was high energy, that's going to ripple out to them performing the best they can in their job role, them delivering that excellent service to the customers. And at the time, I was in a store called Kettering. That was a brand new store that opened. So it had all its challenges of a new store opening, but yeah, it had everything shiny and brand new. So we had to be super proud of what we got. And the team were just fantastic. We got that open. Had a lot of press in the town because it was a brand new store creating job opportunities. So I was just like buzzing to think, this is mine. So I never wanted to lose track that all these people, I can't do this without this amazing group of managers and then also staff as well. And we just tried to make it the best place we could to kind of work in. And I think, it sounds cliche, but it's true. We focused on the people and then the results became the second. But actually, it was that kind of focus. We knew we had to achieve KPIs. We knew we had to achieve targets and efficiencies.
Yeah.
But we needed to get that team right and training. Training was at the forefront. How we created that culture in there of people being able to be themselves and feeling natural and authentic was important to me. I wanted people to come into a place where they could be the true self.
I say this all the time, Paul, that we have a choice. We can do culture by design or we can do it by default. And it seems to me that you learned this principle very early on and that you were extremely deliberate everywhere you went to nurture and cultivate and shape the culture that you wanted. And you never let it go to chance. It was never culture by default. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Every new store I moved into, every role I went into, it was all about, right, how do we make this amazing? How do we take what we've got, make it even better, make the people even better? And, my biggest kick, we could smash targets and achieve it. My biggest kick was seeing people in my store go off and be promoted. And they went off, and they'll remember, and weirdly, I was in LinkedIn the other day and we connected with someone and he absolutely spooked me because, this was Kettering store was what? Jesus, going back now 4 years. That's at least a good 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this person connected on LinkedIn because I saw he's in the town where I live. And he messaged me and said, "Hi, Paul, we know each other. I work for you at Kettering." And I was like, wow, where's that come from?
Yeah.
So I'm always a big believer that people always remember, won't they, how you made them feel.
They do.
For a long time.
Another observation that I have is that you lead as if you have no power. And I don't know if you think about that consciously or not, but that's my observation of you. Even if you have positional power, even if there's a power differential, even if you're in the managerial role, that would be a pattern that I would point to throughout your career. I don't know. Have you thought about that? I think you wear your power lightly. I think you hold your opinions lightly, and that makes you accessible. It makes you open. It makes you approachable as a human. Is that something that you think about, or do you think that was more natural? Is that in your disposition, in your makeup?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I actively think about it, Tim, until someone kind of does it. But spot on. It's I don't go chasing for the titles.
Yeah.
That's not what I look at people and go, you're a person for a reason. And underneath all of those layers, you've got some great things that just need maybe sometimes unlocking, and pulling out.
Yeah.
And I'm always really, especially I suppose from a coaching point of view now that I do a lot of one-to-one coaching, I love getting people to really just pull it all back and go, yeah, do you know what? Maybe I'm being clipped by what other people want me to be or don't want me to be, and empowering them but challenging them to go, what is it you truly want to be? Because you can be whatever you want to be. And some of the things that people have gone on to in Jardine through the coaching is just phenomenal, that they wouldn't have known what was possible until they've had some interactions. But yeah, you're right. I just go and do what I do.
That's what you do. So take us through the rest of the journey to get to Jardine, and then help the listeners understand what you do now and what this organization does. What does Jardine do? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so through Next, it was the area trainer, and there was a vacancy came up. I remember she said to me, she went, "Paul, I know your career path is all that management, but what do you reckon getting into the L&D role?" And I remember just thinking, this could be my second curve of my career. So I got into Next and learned everything from facilitation skills. Started to really get really passionate about understanding psychology and behaviors and attitudes, and really got me fired up. So that really got me going. I was there, for that. That was a good 10 years in the L&D world, and then just wanted to pushed the ceiling off a bit, really, Tim. I thought, right, I need to start looking for something bigger. And there was an opportunity at Jardine Motors Group to head up all their leadership development. So, 4 years ago, applied and came into this role. And just the autonomy, I suppose, what I was looking for, I've got it here. It's like, and I remember my HR director said, here it all is, Paul. This is what it looks like today. It's up to you to go and create what you want it to be, which, as you can imagine, that was me, like a kid in a sweet shop. Here we go.
So let's talk about when you started out. So here you are at Jardine. And by the way, just explain, what do you do? What does this organization do?
Yeah, so we're automotive industry. So Jardine Motors, we're based in the UK, but we're part of, obviously, the bigger Jardine Matheson, who are out there, obviously, in Hong Kong. So we're a small little section of that business. But underneath that, I say small, we're dealing with brands like McLaren, Aston Martin. We've got Ferrari, Audi, Jaguar, Land Rover. So a real premium luxury product that we've kind of got there. But, really deep-rooted, valued, people-centric organisation, which is fantastic. We're always quoting, our CEO always says, we're a people business, not a car business.
I love that.
And it's a great place to kind of be, because it is bred for everybody.
Yeah.
We could be selling everything, but it's the people that will make that business, whatever it is. The product's just the product.
So when you came into this role, Paul, how did you look at the organization and begin to approach it and say, this is where I need to start? How did you assess everything and kind of prioritize it and say, this is where we need to start? This is where the priority is? Because that's a lot to get your arms around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And as soon as I knew I had that autonomy, I was just fired up. So I was like, right, I remember it was the August. I spoke with my HR director, Claire, and said, right, I just want some time to get out in the business. I want to understand from the director's point of view. I want to understand from the people point of view. I want to know what really drives this business, what's in place at the moment, what's happening, and then equally what's not happening, so we can make sure that everything we're delivering is aligning to the culture of the business, the strategy, the focus. So actually then it can fit, kind of hand in glove. So it was lots of meetings with all the different brand directors, which was great. I got to them know their personalities, what they really wanted from someone that was heading up the leadership development. I went out and sat in all the modules that were being set up and run, and really got close to the people, and after the modules I'd say to them, we've got this set up at the moment. What do you think we need to do? How do we need to do it? What do we need to do to make it even better? Because I just knew that I wanted the people to influence where we were then going to take the next part of the journey. And then it got to about, so that was August, got to about December. I'd evaluated everything. And then I sat down with my HRD and I said, here we go. Here's my evaluation. This is where we're currently at.
Okay.
If we want to take this now to the next level, this is now what we need to do with the programs. We need to ramp it up. So, leadership programs were ran predominantly inside a dealership boardroom. I'd turn up and see all the ladies and gents in their shirt, their tie, around a lovely big oak table, but they got a lovely glass window. So every time they turned up to a leadership program, they looked out the glass window and their mind was just going, work, 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 so that they were being distracted. And that was it. We needed to get out. We needed to go off-site. We needed to do it properly.
You got to move.
Yeah.
Get out of the venue, get out of the premises, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We needed to make it feel this was a special place for them to be, time where they could come really self-reflect and really understand and immerse themselves into these leadership programs and these modules, so then they could go back to work and think about how to apply it. So, we changed them all, but we not only changed the venue, we just that game changer, of I can just turn up in casual clothes. That mindset shift was huge. And then we looked at the psychology that we were building into these modules and really fired up that kind of learning to be very experiential, because we're so limited in a room, where you've got a table that you can't move. And, I'm very much, when we get in that room, we're off the chair, we're doing stuff. So people have that real kind of, that hit me. What was that all about? What's going on here? Why am I thinking and feeling differently all of a sudden?
Okay, you just said something, Paul, that I think we need to listen to. We need to go back. You said, so when you're doing training and you've got a group, you're off the chair a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? You've come to the conclusion that that's what the experience needs to be like. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that, because a lot of times we're used to these very didactic experiences and we're sitting down and we're being talked to, and that's not your approach at all. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to be in a training session with you.
Yeah, definitely. When we get in that room, I know straight away my biggest objective is to build that rapport. people will be turning up. They'll definitely have that little bit of imposter going on. They'll be worried. They'll have anxieties. They'll be nervous. But there'll equally be some that are perhaps bouncing around, a bit similar to me. Can't wait to get in there. What are we going to learn? What the excitement? So there's always that nice moment that we really just break that ice and, have that kind of talk and discussion and build some humor in there so people realize that strip the titles off. I'm just a human. I'm here, just kind of obviously helping them and get them to realize that this is their day. It's important for them. And then we'll start some activities and we'll get some real kind of experiential activities going, whether that's to build that leadership skills in someone and so my objective is every time we've got these activities going on, what we've got there, Tim, is real life playback scenarios. None of this kind of let's pretend we're in this situation. If there's a situation,
we're not doing hypotheticals, we're not doing case studies, we're doing real stuff. Right?
That's it. So at the moment that someone's reacted to something because we've put a bit of pressure on with an activity, for instance, I've got one that we separate them into 4 rooms. It's called Houston, We've Got a Problem. And there they are immersed, thinking that they're trying to get themselves back to planet Earth and they're on this space shuttle. And then you curveball them and they've got to build something. And then straight away you watch the team dynamics in that pressure. Who takes that leader role? Who then suddenly becomes potentially the command and control, or who can step back and work out what the strengths are in the team to actually achieve that main objective? And then by the time we then come back in the room and they've all had that kind of epiphany and paradigm shift in themselves, then we take some time just to sit on the chair and go, right, let's just see what happened there. How does that align to my day-to-day job? Let's think of when you're under pressure. So everything has to talk back to what are the objectives, what are the business objectives, but how are them as a leader? What impact did you have in that scenario? And let's now scale it up to when you're there in your day-to-day job. So I'm a very big believer because, I've been there too many times, Tim. Everything sits up in the air, real high theory. And there's slide after slide after slide. And it's just overload. And the brain can only take so much, can't it? And then, they'll always remember those touch points. When this happened to me in that room, that to me is where the magic kicks in.
Let's talk about, so I think it was last year, Paul, that you shared with me that you started your high performing teams program. Help us understand that program and what you're doing and how it's going and what you've learned from that.
Every year we always do something quite different for the senior leaders. We're really invested that top level should be getting that continuation of development, because we always think about those grassroots levels. But so for our heads of business, our real directors, and we did a bit of a mindfulness session, a good few years back. And then me and my HRD, we were talking, saying, right, what do we need to do? What would be really important for our real top level kind of bit of development? And I was really starting to do some research just around psychological safety. And I think, the disruption of COVID really started to obviously have an impact. And we were at that cusp of getting ready to kind of almost reopen up the world again, kind of April, mid 2021. But just in 2020, I thought, right, we could do some work here. And I've done a little bit of research in it. And then, I landed on leader factor. And I thought, okay, there's something going on here. So I got the book. Of course you do. You got to grab the book first, and we read it. And then I got really hooked into it. And I thought, this is really powerful stuff, because we have got at the point where all our teams have had the biggest disruption ever. They're now remote. They're not in their dealerships anymore. The directors are trying to do stuff over Teams. And when we come back, we need to realize that actually to create that high performing team, everyone's got to get back and feel that sense of connected again. So this was important. So I then obviously went off and did the accreditation. We put a business case forward to our directors and said, look, this will be an important stage. And I think the big trick was for me is most leadership programs, it's nice that you've got different people from different areas of the business. But this was one that we were going to go, we're going to take you and your team and really go on this kind of creating high performing programs. It's going to be a 1-day, real face-to-face kind of high energy, real thought provoking through the 4 stages, really kind of seeing what that looks like as we build through inclusion, learner, contributor and challenger, how that can apply to how we're all coming back together. But then we're going to build that in with actually the survey. And then from the survey, we're going to come back after 90 days. And then we build in we call it 90 for 90. So we've got a 90-day follow-up in a 90-minute virtual session.
Okay.
We see what that power's had on that team and some of the results. And that's been a really exciting time over 2021, because we have taken every director and their team on that journey.
Paul, how do you create, one of the concepts that we've been talking about with L&D professionals around the world lately is cultural flatness. And what that means, you alluded to it just a few minutes ago, is that when you're in the room, you are removing the obstacles and the barriers that come with title and position and authority and status, and you're getting rid of that. And you're creating this culturally flat environment where people can really interact with candor, with honesty. They can engage with even more vulnerability. Do you have any other suggestions about how to create that cultural flatness? Anything that you can think of that you do?
I think the one thing that when I build it into the day module is, like I said, first thing that they come into is we hit them hard with an exercise. And there's nothing about title in there. It's about getting a team of people. It's a bit of fun. It's blindfolded. They're around a table and they've got to work out the objectives through that power of communication. And actually what we then do is there is no titles in there. It's all about the strengths within the team. There is a little bit of a default, which is quite funny because they always then turn to the director as being that leader. But then we can unpick it afterwards and talk about, was anyone really wanting to challenge some of the decisions that were made in that activity? Who didn't have a voice? Why didn't you have a voice? And we really start to almost straight away from the start get people to realize that titles are not a thing. Everyone can bring something special to those. And actually the objective, when you get to it, is going to be more powerful by the sum of the people, not by just that kind of one voice. And then what we do really quite quick after that, the session is done, is I get everyone to really almost start thinking what's really important to them at a value baseline. I get them to really think about what's important to them, stripping off what the expectations of the job role are. But actually at the fundamental, if we were to take every core layer back of you, what are your real true values? And we get them to really think about that. And we've got a whole long list of kind of different powerful words. And I get them to kind of really have a good look at the words. I really challenge them to think about 5 words that are really fundamentally important. And then one by one, we ask them to come up to the front of the room and just give everyone a bit of context to what's the why behind that word.
Well, give us an example of how this works. So 5 words that each person picks?
Yeah, so there's about 30 odd words. I scatter them across the table, all loads of like business card words. And I say, right, just in your own space, let's keep some silence in the room. So I want people to really stop for a minute, really reflect on only one thing that's most important is them. Mm-hmm. And just think about, maybe values from your past life that maybe have obviously contributed to how you are today, things that are really important to you. So there'll be words on there like honesty, trust, empowerment, fulfillment, learning, or all the different kind of value-driven words. They'll write down 5 and ask them just to write a small bit of context. Why is that word important to you? Because it don't matter too much. It's got to be important to you. And then while we've got that room open, and we don't really have any tables in the room, we just have literally a horseshoe of chairs, so we're really just opening up that room to everyone talking. And then one by one, I get them to come to the front, and don't get me wrong, people are going to be a bit like, I'm a bit nervous, a bit out of my comfort zone. And it's like, but it will be fine. What I find it does though, Tim, is the team naturally come together to support that person at the front. And they want to hear that person's story. And not one session I've ever had that moment, Tim, where everyone in the room has gone, do you know what? I never knew that about you, but I feel now I know you on such a different level that when we work together, it just snaps all that kind of whatever barriers were there, whatever different views or opinions. There's now a tangible, I really know the true you more than I've ever done before. I know exactly now what really triggers you, what really works for you. So when we are together in a team or when we're in a one-to-one situation, and that session is quite powerful. It really is quite powerful because even a director said to me, he said, I do presentations in front of bigger crowds than this, but he said, you're asking me now to really show that vulnerability.
That's right.
But it's quite enlightening and empowering because, and even in the evaluations, it's been one of those exercises that people have said, without that exercise, I don't think we'd have really been able to have moved forward where we did at the end of the day, which was going, right, when we look at that team survey and some of the comments that are in there from everybody, people go, actually, I can see where that's now come from.
What evidence do you see, Paul, as you're having these sessions of people having breakthrough moments, light bulb moments, revelatory moments where they've learned something, right? That's very important. They've had an insight shake loose that they haven't had before. Where do you see that? How do you see that? Because I imagine that you do when you're having these sessions.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you see almost, it's the conversation that starts to happen in the dynamics of that group. And people start to be a bit more honest around actually maybe how they're feeling in that team dynamics. But also they start to find there's a confidence in their voice. They start to come up with different ideas. They start to maybe challenge a bit more, or they have a bit more of an opinion because whereas before they're like, it's easy. Maybe I just sit here and, I'm not sure where I come.
They're holding back.
Yeah, just hold back. Or where do I really fit in? Especially like within a team, there might be some silos within a team, so it could be that certain part of that team might look after a certain area, certain function. So it can happen, but suddenly you just see that whole shoulders drop. They become more at ease with themselves, but more at ease with people around them. And I think it's the final exercise of the day that we do that, when we talk about that challenge of safety, I get all of them to actually go and give each other some one-to-one feedback. And actually, there's no fear in there. They're ready, hierarchy's off, and they're ready to have those open conversations. And actually, when I watch a team come together when we give them their survey, without those little exercises, they wouldn't have got to where they get to, because what they're all ready to do is go, yeah, do you know what? What can we now do as a team to really push forward? Let's get innovative. Let's start thinking of some different ways of doing it. And teams have definitely come back from that afternoon when I give them a good hour or two going, we've got so many great ideas now of how we want to move this team. But some of those ideas would definitely have been closed in 100%, because people weren't ready to kind of embrace that and talk about it, or they would have already convinced themselves straight away that, no one wants to hear my idea. Yes, we do.
So, Paul, are you seeing long-term evidence that this is working, that teams are getting better?
Yeah, from survey result to, from the 99, we've seen roughly about 5% increase in just how those team feelings are around themselves. We're using our engagement survey as a good tracker as around that. So we want to see that, because weirdly, and this is a real paradigm shift where we had, obviously, this is a kind of big focus for it. And then when we used an external company for our engagement survey, it was in there. It said, you know what, inclusivity, all those areas are great, but there are some areas of psychological safety that could be improved across the group. That was big, Tim, because there was the hook. It's like, right, let's really do this. And directors are saying, they're seeing their teams lead their teams more proactively now. They're coming forward now, not waiting for those decisions to be made. They're actually ready to now come to me with decisions and willing to challenge. Over the last 2 years, we had to change so much that people were questioning, going, well, what is our real why in Jardine Motors Group? And the directors, even in the sessions, have said, yeah, actually, we perhaps need to go back to that as well. So we're on a real cultural shift at the moment, Tim, where we're revamping what our why is, but making sure that's a clear message across the group, because that's what sat underneath that engagement survey. Is our staff were saying, I know what to do, I know how to do it, but I want to know why we do it. So we're really putting those strategies in, and team performance, definitely a contributor to last year. We had a record-breaking year as a performance, and can't connect that 100%, but definitely there'd have been something in there in a year where we all came back from 2 years of absolute disruption. It got teams back together to unite. And we're not going to stop there. This year now is about, we're now rolling that out with every single dealership and their senior management team in there, because we want this language to now really filter through everybody.
It's pretty incredible. What's changed from the pandemic, Paul, that you can put your finger on? What's changed in the organization? What's changed in people's expectations? What's changed in the way in what people want, that you've noticed just based on the last 2 years that we've been through? What do you see?
I think for us, it's just people now just want to feel like they're really part of something. We've gone through so much change, whether it's digitalization, transitioning, and we've seen parts of our business, have now sold off. And why have we done that? How are we now moving forward? And I think people are just asking that big question now is, what does this mean now going forward for Jardine Motors? And that's what we're now starting to answer, so we can give back to our people. And they're really wanting to feel that value again and really understand how their role really fits into all the cogs, the bigger cogs of what we're trying to achieve.
So it kind of comes back to finding meaning, finding purpose, feeling that, the deep
absolutely.
why that you talked about earlier.
Definitely, yeah. And I think, we've seen it. Maybe some people have questioned why just even outside of the work world, they've had time to reflect and think about what's really important for them. And, is this the year of the great resignation, as it got coined? We felt that, because some people have thought, maybe a change of career is needed. Do I need to be doing what I did before the pandemic? And now we're coming back outside of that. But then equally, other people are really challengers going, it's fired me up to want more. I want to be developed, and I want to start pushing on in my career. And so I think there's so many different ways people are assessing their own situation right now. But, I think for us, it's just getting right back to, let's establish that purpose of why. Let's get back to thinking about how we get our premium and luxury kind of brand really out there with our customers, our people. And we really are all behind that one message.
That's absolutely fantastic. Well, Paul, You've given us so much to think about, so many insights. It's just amazing. And I have to say, you really are electric. You have your own generator, and it really, but here's the thing. You can't fake that. You can't engage in surface acting. This is an interesting concept. Surface acting means that you're trying to generate emotions that you don't actually feel. And sometimes people do that. For example, have you ever been into you go into a retail location and someone comes to help you and they start surface acting and they put a smile on and they act as if they're really excited to help you, but they're not.
Yeah.
That's what that means. And you can do that for a little while, but it's not really, you can't keep doing it. We get it, right? It's not lost on us because humans have a natural ability to smell intent. And if the intent's not there, you don't pass the smell test. But the thing that I love about you, Paul, is that you're genuine. You have so much passion, so much concern, so much genuine interest in the people that you're working with that they can't help but feel that. And I think that may account for part of the reason that you're able to build rapport so quickly. And so I just want to compliment you on that. Your energy is contagious, your passion, your dedication. It all comes back to people, right?
Yep.
The employee experience drives the customer experience. As we say, the EX drives the CX. Yep. And I think that you have proved that hypothesis over and over and over again. Right? So yeah. I just want to say thank you. And I'm so glad that we've been able to have you share some of your experience and insight with so many other folks, because what you're doing is such a case study. In the midst of the pandemic, you've made progress with engagement, with psychological safety, with the business results overall, right? It's pretty incredible that in that context, you could move forward with that. I'm just amazed.
And, I'm grateful for the culture that I'm in as well. The culture allows me to just be me.
Yeah.
And I remember when I joined Jardine Motors, I came with one vow to myself and I said, I'm just going to be me. If it works, fantastic. Let's just enjoy what this kind of brings my way. If it doesn't, then so be it. I can find another culture that was ready to kind of scoop me up and embrace me. But you know what? Jardine Motors has allowed me to do what I do in my authentic style. And we're seeing just what the results are, and how we've grown, what we've grown in 4 years. I'm just super proud of being able to go, yeah, I can say I was part of that.
Yeah. Well, as we say about psychological safety, it's not expensive to be yourself. That's what you're experiencing, right?
Yep. Too easy.
That's fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough, Paul. Thanks for being with us on this episode, and thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for all the learning. It's been great, honestly. Keep them coming.
Thanks for joining me today on the Culture by Design podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to new episodes every week. And if you'd like to see more of the work we're doing, go to leaderfactor.com.